Summer Spotlight is presented by Raymond Felton State Farm.
Have you compared insurance rates lately? Are you satisfied with your current insurance provider? If not, look no further than Ray Felton State Farm, a proud sponsor of Sports on Tap. For a free quote, call his office at 234-284-2996 or visit him online at rayfelton.com.
Whether you're hosting a corporate event, wedding, conference, concert, or any other special gathering, our comprehensive range of services will exceed your expectations and elevate your event to new heights. RRT Productions. We shoot, we edit, you win. Visit our website at www.rrt-productions.com.
Hand and built leather goods. Leather goods built for life. Made by hand in the USA, all goods are made with veg-tanned leather. Some of the best quality around and made by a U.S. veteran. Check out their website, www.handbuiltleather.com.
We've got the experience, the passion, and the beach to make your event a smash hit. Whether it's a romantic wedding, a lively sports venue, or a rocking high school dance, Troutland Entertainment has you covered. Contact them at 330-414-4261 or email them at troutlandent@gmail.com. That's troutlandent@gmail.com. Spotlight is presented by Raymond Felton State Farm.
Have you compared insurance rates lately? Are you satisfied with your current insurance provider? If not, look no further than Ray Felton State Farm, a proud sponsor of Sports on Tap. For a free quote, call his office at 234-284-2996 or visit him online at rayfelton.com.
Whether you're hosting a corporate event, wedding, conference, concert, or any other special gathering, our comprehensive range of services will exceed your expectations and elevate your event to new heights. RRT Productions. We shoot, we edit, you win. Visit our website at www.rrt-productions.com.
Hand and built leather goods. Leather goods built for life. Made by hand in the USA, all goods are made with veg-tanned leather. Some of the best quality around and made by a U.S. veteran. Check out their website, www.handbuiltleather.com.
We've got the experience, the passion, and the beach to make your event a smash hit. Whether it's a romantic wedding, a lively sports venue, or a rocking high school dance, Troutland Entertainment has you covered. Contact them at 330-414-4261 or email them at troutlandent@gmail.com. That's troutlandent@gmail.com.
Welcome everybody to Sports SOT podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Sports on Tap. We're also on Spotify. Look for Sports on Tap on Spotify. Of course, our website is sportsontappodcast.com. You get all the information, especially coming up in the high school football season that we'll be covering here soon. You'll get all the information you need on the website. And of course, our email is sportsontappodcast@gmail.com. We are very lucky to be joined by. I think he's acquired friend of show status. He's been on with us long enough now. We are joined by the voice of the Cleveland Monsters, the AHL North Division champion, Cleveland Monsters. He's been the voice of the Monsters for 9 seasons by way of Odessa, Omaha, and Indianapolis. He was the James H. Ellery Award winner in 2020 and 2021. And he brings the best calls you can listen to in a hockey rink. This is Tony Brown of the Cleveland Monsters. Tony, thanks for taking the time out of your off season to join us tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure, guys. And Ed, what an intro, man! You did your research there. I love it. Thank you very much. It has indeed been a long road to get to Cleveland, and these last 9 years have just been the greatest. And this last season and the playoff run, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, some of the most special games I've ever had the privilege to call. So really excited to be here and talk about it as we're kind of into the off season. It's good to, there's still a ton going on in the hockey world. So excited to be here.
Tony, a really good run by the Monsters this year. They won the North Division. The Monsters, they were 40-24, 5-3, 88 points. We'll get to the playoffs in a minute and kind of in the season in general. But they went on quite a heater at the end of the season to win the division championship. So let's start there. They put themselves in the position to make the run in the playoffs by running the table at the end of the season. How special was that? Just that small snippet of the season that was set up by their success earlier in the year.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's something that I really don't want to get lost, and when you have a great playoff, you sort of forget about what happened before that. The Monsters had a magical end to the regular season. There was a 3-3 at the end of the year, and if you want to go back a little bit even further, the team had a really tough period there towards the end of the season. It happens in the American League that the Blue Jackets, were decimated with injuries, and the Monsters were without a huge amount of their key players. In fact, pretty much all their key players there for a while. There were as many at one point as 12 guys called up to the Blue Jackets. And so there was a 7-game losing streak in there, and people were worried after this great season. The fans started to get a little nervous, like, how's the team going to get through this? But once they got all their guys back, or at least most of them or enough of them back, there was this 3-3 at the end of the year, the final 3 games of the regular season, and the path to a division crown, something that the Monsters in their entire franchise history had never achieved, winning a division. The path was really, really narrow to try to make it happen. They needed to win all 3 of those games. They needed to get some help, and it all fell into place. And on that last day of the regular season in Toronto, not only did Jet Greaves do something that I don't think I've ever seen done in the American League ever, which is play as a goaltender all 3 of those games in 3 days. I mean, usually you get 2 and the backup gets 1 or whatever. But he played all 3. He won all 3. And with that win on the last day of the regular season, he doesn't just clinch the division title for Cleveland, but he sets the Monsters' new all-time wins record. I mean, it was like storybook stuff. And so after that, I mean, of course, that's an amazing feeling to win a division. But that's really when the work begins, heading into the playoffs. And I think the teams that sort of didn't see a lot of the Monsters throughout the regular season, they might look at those struggles, in the month of March or whenever, and maybe think, oh, well, Cleveland, they just sort of crept in. What are we going to see from them? But I think all the teams, and I put Hershey on this list, that really knew what the Monsters were when they had all their guys and when they were at their best. They knew that Cleveland was a real contender, and that's something that all the guys believed. And Trent Vogelhuber, the head coach, who I've been lucky to work with now when he was a player and then for years as an assistant coach and now as a head coach, he just pressed every correct button you could possibly press with this group. And it's a team, the best teams in sports are the ones that love each other and play for each other, and the teams that respect and love their coaching staff too. And all of that was the case this year with the Monsters. And it just added up to an incredible run in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, even if a deep playoff run wouldn't have been in the cards, the way they ended that regular season was truly something special.
Tony, thank you for taking the time and joining tonight. And it's a privilege for me talking to you. You know, one of the things that really sticks out to me is that whenever I'm at these Monsters games, whether it's a Friday night, a Saturday night, it's always a sellout there. And for the fourth time in 5 seasons, the Monsters led the league in the highest percentage league in a sellout. And it was the highest average attendance by an AHL team in like 25 years. Just kind of talk about how the Monsters fan base really shows out, whether it's a Friday night or Saturday night or any night, there's a home game. And it just shows the passion that Cleveland fans have for hockey. Just kind of talk about that.
Well, we talk about it all the time, Noah, throughout the season. Like, the fans, they actually have an impact on the success of the team, in my opinion. I mean, you look across the American League and it's not like the NHL in that every team has a similar size building and every team has passionate fans and stuff. It varies throughout the league. And what the Monsters have is a major league environment every single night. And it's all thanks to the fans. Now, we are blessed to have a tremendous production staff with the Cavaliers and our, beyond that with the Monsters and some incredibly talented people that make that show what it is and get everybody hyped up. But it's the fans that show up and put their thumb on the scale and give these guys an environment that is, in every sense of the word, world class. And yeah, you got it right. I mean, think about that. In the last 25 years, no team has averaged what the Monsters did this year in terms of attendance. It's something that makes me feel super lucky to be and have been a part of the Monsters for 9 seasons now. And I remember being new, right? My first year was the year they won the Calder Cup back in 15-16. And I kind of couldn't believe what I was seeing here, because when I took the job, I remember a lot of people I had previously worked or immediately before I took that job, I was in Indianapolis, and I heard a lot of the same things when I took the Cleveland job that I heard when I went to Indy, which was, oh, great sports town, but not really a hockey town. Well, that's just not true. It's never been true. There's some reasons for that misconception, I think, with there have been a lot of different teams over the years in different leagues that have been there. Of course, the old Barons back in the day, the Crusaders, even the NHL Barons, the Barons that were associated with the San Jose Sharks, who didn't have as much, business success as some of the other teams. But there's always been hockey. I mean, there's always been hockey, and it's a city that's full of knowledgeable, passionate fans. I mean, we know that's true in all the other, major sports, and it's absolutely true in hockey. So it's been a gift to be able to get to know so many of the fans with the Monsters, and specifically with the Cleveland Hockey Booster Club, which is an organization that's been working for honestly like almost 100 years now, supporting the game, not just at the pro level, but the game in general across the region. So it's a great hockey town. It's one of America's great hockey towns, and it doesn't get near the credit it deserves. But all that credit goes to the fans who, again, really make an impact for the guys. And if you're wondering if that's true, just ask any player that's ever worn the uniform, that's ever walked out of that tunnel, that's ever, felt the chills of that, absolute chaos inside the field house when things really get ramped up. So for the other, my favorite thing is, if you ever come to the games, we're at the Joe Tate Perch, which is behind the benches. And it's sort of closer to the ice than the broadcast spot in most arenas. And I love looking at the faces of the rookies on the opposing team the first time they come into that building, because there's a lot of wide eyes at just what they're walking into here, and it makes a huge difference. So the players all say it, and I say it too. We are all so lucky to work in this particular sport of hockey in this city.
Well, and Tony, you're right. I think Cleveland has really embraced the Monsters, and they've, when we used to go to games, it was the Lumberjacks for a long time. But I think a lot of the fans too are excited and want, I think they like the Blue Jackets. Columbus is a short drive away to go see some of these players that, play here and then they get called up. We saw that up and down a lot with a lot of players this season. Jet Greaves being one of them. I mean, he was playing goaltender for the Blue Jackets at the end of the season. Did a great job. Obviously, with the Monsters, I mean, you talked about it. I mean, what a season he had. Talk a little bit about, I know Coach Huber, that's short for his full name. But he seemed like a genuinely nice guy in a lot of the interviews you've done with him, and he seems like he's a player's coach. Is that pretty realistic and true there?
Yeah, totally. I mean, Trent is a guy that not too long ago was in these dressing rooms as a player and carved out a pretty, rock solid career for himself as a pro player. Of course, a great college player too at Miami of Ohio. And so he's a guy as a little bit younger. He's actually the first coach I've ever worked with. He's about 6 months younger than me. I've never worked with a coach that I'm older than before. But like I said, it's been now a good chunk of time that we've been able to work together. And for any broadcaster and coach, just to have that credibility kind of, you sort of know there's no skepticism. He knows, where I'm coming from. I know where he's coming from. That just helped so much. So on a personal note, I find him just, honestly, a pleasure to work with. And same for the whole staff. But yeah, he's a younger guy. And so these players that come in, sometimes very young players coming out of junior or college that find themselves with their first pro hockey experience with the Monsters, it's just, he sort of had instant credibility with those guys. And of course, last season, and even going back to when Mike Eaves was the head coach and he had some health problems and Trent was in sort of an interim head coach situation or just kind of filling in, I guess, at that point. But he's had a long time to sort of, and some great mentors too throughout his career that he'll tell you about if you ask him about them. I mean, he played for Jared Bednar when he led the Monsters to the Cup. And many other guys. I don't want to put names in his mouth there, but I know that he's spoken about all the great influences on his sort of journey to become a coach. He's clearly leaned on those and all the great experience and lessons that they have to offer. But yeah, I think the players just it makes a huge difference when they not just respect. You'd hope that all players respect their coach, but that there was really a sense of, I'm going to say it again, like love between everybody in that room. And it was really driven home. You mentioned the games on TV there. I don't know if you guys were watching that seventh game. It ends in overtime. And sure enough, Trent has to make that do that difficult interview with us after a result that's devastating. But the emotion is so clear. And we're feeling the emotion in the booth. He's feeling the emotion down there going into the dressing room after the game. Those guys really just fought for each other. And, that extends to the coaching staff too. I mean, every guy was coming to the rink, throughout the entire season, but especially in the playoffs. And it just sort of accentuates as the playoffs go on. But every guy was coming in, willing to sacrifice anything for the team and for all the guys in that room. And so the respect and the affection that they had for each other, that was the engine for the entire season. And I know that those players this year is going to stick with them. All of them are going to take something out of it. And all that begins with the tone that gets set by Trent and his great staff of Mike Havland and Mark Letestu and Mike Monty and Brad Thiessen and Ben Eaves and on down the line. So Chris Clark, too, let's not forget the Monsters' great GM who's done just a fabulous job giving this team everything they could possibly want or need to compete at the highest level. So it's just a special group of people, and all the great teams in sports that I've either followed or worked with or whatever, they all have that in common, that they care so deeply about one another. And so that is something that if you say nothing else about the Monsters this season, you can say that they really played for one another.
We're talking with Cleveland Monsters play-by-play, the voice of the Cleveland Monsters, Tony Brown. Tony, we talked a little bit before we went on the air. We mentioned we were going to get to this, but the Hershey series, they were defending Calder Cup champions going into the season, and they take a quick 3-0 lead on the Monsters, and you obviously you want the best to happen, you want the impossible to happen. As the series goes on, that's becoming a little bit more of a reality. you mentioned that it's not very often that as a player you get yourself in that situation, but you also, I think what gets lost is there's a lot of other roles, yours included, that are hinging on whether you win or lose that night. And if you lose, that's it. If you win, all right, we have to get on the train and go to Hershey, or we get to go home and come back to the arena on Wednesday. Talk about the emotions of the third of that 7-game series that started out 0-3 for the Monsters, and I did watch the last few games on TV, and it was I was telling our last coach, I try not to get as emotionally invested in sports as much. I'm a little bit older, and I'm like, man, but like that was a gut punch, but the rest of it up to that point was nothing short of amazing.
I couldn't agree more, Ed. Like, I will say though, and we've been talking about this series so much in the last several weeks. It's kind of nice. I've been on vacation, so I kind of took a week off from thinking about it. But looking back, people should remember, I mean, the first 2 games of that series, those were times when the Monsters were down goals with like less than a minute left in regulation, and
Right.
they forced overtime in both of those games. So, I was really surprised at sort of the tone that was coming from Hershey as they built that lead. It's not as though they dominated that series from the gate or anything like that. And if a few bounces happen differently in overtime in those first 2 games of the series, then this is a completely different conversation. So, yes, it was down 0-3, but the way that the team played and rallied and proved their resiliency and proved that they weren't intimidated at the outset of the series, I think that really put some seeds of doubt into Hershey's mind. And let's not forget, like, Hershey wasn't just a good team, and a contender. I mean, they had one of the greatest regular seasons in the 88-year history of the American Hockey League. So this is truly one of the best teams ever put together in the history of the league. And the Monsters stared them right in the face and gave them absolutely everything they could possibly handle. But yeah, I mean, when you're down 0-3, it kind of, when you're the team that's not expected to win the series at all, it's kind of like you're playing with house money the whole time. All the pressure I felt, and granted, I have a totally different perspective than the players do, and there's plenty of pressure for everybody individually and collectively in all these games. But for me, it's like, down 0-3, it almost didn't really feel like it. You know what I mean? Because you're expected to lose the series anyway. So I just remember feeling like, if they can get 1, who knows? And if they can get 2, watch out. And now then they got 3, and then it's like, hey, here we go. It's a roll of the dice. But what Trent did so effectively, and I got to give him a ton of credit, because that a message is sinking in to the dressing room when you do interviews with all the guys, and they're all saying the same things. You know what I mean? That means that they're really understanding the message here. And the message was, you're down 0-3, just like if you were trailing in a game 3-0. You can't score 3 goals at once. So, the big picture just has to get tiny and minute. And they did a great job of breaking the game into segments. So it's not even like we got to play a good first period. It's like we got to play a good 6-minute section from the start of the period to the first media timeout. And then we got to do it again. Or if you want to go further, break it down into individual shifts. And that way, the giant Mount Everest accomplishment of coming back from down 0-3 mentally seems manageable. You know what I mean? So Trent did a great job getting those guys to buy into that, and not sort of, because, down 0-3, who knows? Some teams would, well, it's not our year, and fold up that tent. But that absolutely never happened with this team. And yeah, it was a crazy roller coaster ride, man. I mean, again, for a broadcaster, like, it was a dream, because the city really started paying a ton of attention as it went on. And I mean, our tremendous, sort of PR lead, and she's got a very long title, so I don't want to try to say it, but Nicole Del Villano in our front office had us on all the stations. I mean, we did more media down the stretch this year than I can remember doing, probably in my career. So, the city was in. We had some really amazing partners with WUAB to get those road games on TV, which was a significant lift. We had a huge a huge group of people with the Monsters and Cavs kind of internally, led by the great Dave McElhatton, but many, many names on that list. Joe Freachin, our engineering lead, Mike Conley, who kind of runs the broadcasting show for the organization. Everybody bought in. Mike Ostrowski, our team president, and we just pulled out all the stops to bring everybody along on the ride. And so, again, as a broadcaster, to have those big tying goals at the end of games to force overtime, to have just playoff overtime in general. I mean, it doesn't get better. Every single little moment, minuscule bounce of the puck matters so much. And so it was as much fun as I've had calling games probably since, June of 2016, if I'm being honest with you. So, and just every bit as memorable too. And so, I hope that we brought me and the great Jock Calendar and of course Brad and our entire crew, Dan Larson, our producer, and everybody that really, I mean, we got a whole production stood up out there on the road in Hershey, which is not something that we usually do, as you guys know. So it was just a super team effort on the broadcasting side too, and tons of great memories made. And I hope we could bring a shred of the excitement we were feeling back to you guys watching it. And even when it's devastating and you lose in overtime in that game 7, and yeah, you weren't supposed to win the series, but you get that close and it really hurts. And it really hurt. And that's how it was meaningful, is how much everybody shared that just pity your stomach sort of misery feeling at the end of it. But there's nothing that team could have done more than they did. And it was a privilege to be there to hopefully add a little something for the fans and take them along on what was just really a magical ride.
Now, did they
Yeah,
know
Tony.
Oh, go ahead, Noah.
Oh, yeah, Tony. Going back to like the Hershey series, I could feel like the Game 6 game when Hershey scored the goal with like 45 seconds to go, and I could just see you were calm, collect, cool, like the game wasn't over yet. And then heck, the Monsters scored a goal with like who knows 30 seconds left in the game, and then I could just feel the excitement that the Monsters scored in overtime, and you were like, he scores! Like the excitement that you kind of just like had. I just want to talk about your emotions going into the Game 6 with whether it was like 45 seconds left in the game and that overtime call.
How many teams could give up a goal in an elimination game with less than a minute left, and then you really believe that they're going to tie the game? I mean, but that's how it felt with this team. I mean, again, the way the first 2 games of the series went, they proved that they're never out of it. I think what I said is like something like Cleveland can't be killed or something like that after that tying goal, because it felt like there was nothing that they couldn't overcome. And when you're broadcasting, you're not a fan. It's a different thing. I mean, we cover the team. We obviously have relationships with all the guys, and you spend so much time throughout the year, and you want things to go well. And yeah, it's a Cleveland show. We're not like, it's not a national show where you have to show deference to both sides, but I mean, again, it doesn't get better than when you can just sort of sit down on the roller coaster and it starts moving. It's almost out of your hands at that point. And so, yeah, I mean, again, it just doesn't get better than that feeling. And so, yeah, Game 6 was wild, and it was so great that it was Jake Christensen that got to end that game in overtime because, of course, one of the team's heart and soul, absolute best players for the last several years. I mean, it's two-time All-Star, top defenseman all year, and he has a devastating injury that keeps him out for a good chunk of the playoffs. I mean, think how hard that must be for an individual that has been there all year and cares as much as a guy like Christie does. So to have him come back and then score the winner in his first game back there in Game 6, I mean, again, it really just felt like storybook destiny type stuff. But that's not really what it's all about. I mean, it's just whatever happens, you're there to tell the fans what's going on. You're there to identify the players, but yeah, you're there too to let them know just how special it is. And I hope you could tell from my voice that we all had perfect context on just what we were witnessing.
Yeah, I think for sure it came through. I love that WUAB picked up those games, and is that something that maybe down the line that they're going to do more of, is putting it, because I know they had, really they've had a lot of games, Monsters games on television. I don't know if they were all live. I thought some of them were replays, at least the ones that I've seen, but they started really putting a lot of Monsters games on television, which I think is great. Especially for, you see it when you go out to a restaurant or something, they have the Monsters on the television. I think that's great promotion for hockey and the Monsters and all of you guys around the area. But talk a little bit about the team. I know a lot of guys got sent up to Columbus and then came back down, and it kind of was all over the place. Talk about the team and who could possibly make the Columbus Blue Jackets roster. I know we'll get into a little Blue Jackets because they've been making a lot of offseason moves, which I think are kind of exciting, especially with the year they had last year.
Yeah, for sure. First, just real quick on the TV piece. I mean, who knows what the future holds? I certainly don't. But yeah, the UAB thing was outstanding. It was also really cool that our friends over at WTAM, the 1100, the big one, were putting our games up throughout the playoffs. I mean, huge thanks to Keith Kennedy for that show of faith, and I've had a chance to work with those guys a little bit, and so that was, I think, really big. I do want to just throw this out there because I'm really proud of this one. We didn't win it, but we became the first minor league team, or I should say the first non-major league team to ever get nominated for the Sports Live Event Emmy at the Central Great Lakes Emmys. So that means that our production, led by, again, Dave McElhatton, Dan Larson, and a great crew that I hate to go down the list because you always forget one person or something like that. But those two guys just lead a fantastic team. And so I was really proud of that the Monsters got that recognition this year. Beating out teams like the Indiana Pacers or the Guardians to go head-to-head with the Cavs for that Emmy. So that was great, and I love doing games on TV. I love doing games, period. So wherever they end up is a great thing. But our TV show on Bally Sports Great Lakes, Monsters OT, has been a huge boost. I think it sort of started during the COVID era or whatever, but it's gained a lot of momentum, and I think our shows are as good as they've ever been. So I'm really glad that they're getting to more people and more eyeballs, and I hope that continues in the future. In terms of the team, the first guy that I think of when I think of who's going to have a big chance to make a statement in training camp with the Blue Jackets this year is Jet Greaves, because the season he put together. And, you can be a big numbers guy or whatever if you want to be. I'm just telling you, you watch him play, he competes. He is an NHL goaltender, and it's just a matter of when, not if, in my book. And he's also a magnetic kind of a guy. And there's something special to him, his teammates play for him and sacrifice for him. And he picks them up and they pick him up. And there's something special with Jet. And I think Jetter's got, frankly, I wouldn't put anything past him this year because, the way he's come off this last season and the way he carried this team all the way through the playoffs, playing like an NHLer as far as my eyes told me. So I think in training camp, he might open a lot of eyes up in Columbus this year. And if he does, I certainly wouldn't be surprised. There are other guys too, but right now, this time of year is all about who's going to be back, because today was the first day of free agency. A lot of things have happened, and a lot of names that Monster fans have come to know and absolutely love aren't going to be around next year. I don't know if you guys saw the news today, but it appears Josh Dunn is headed to the Buffalo Sabres. So that means maybe Rochester. Billy Sweezy, that one really stings, just a real heart and soul player on this team. Although I'm happy for him on this one because he's a Boston guy and he's going to play for the Bruins.
Oh, man. Josh Jeffy would be really happy with that.
I mean, dream come true for Sweeze, and there is not a better guy in this industry than him. So that is really cool, but that's going to hurt. The captain, Brendan Gaunce, signed today a 2-year deal in Minnesota with the Wild. So, there's going to be some turnover. Tyler Angle, who's been a fixture with Cleveland for a while now, he was not didn't get a qualifying offer, so he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Nick Blankenberg is headed to Nashville. Carson Meyer is a UFA. Marcus Bjork as well. But Jake Christensen was qualified. Greaves was qualified. So those restricted free agents are going to continue to talk with the Blue Jackets, of course. But that's what happens in this business. So there's going to be a lot of change. There's also going to be a lot of new faces next year too. Like who's not going to make the Blue Jackets out of camp? Guys like Gavin Brindley, who was a really exciting addition out of the University of Michigan for the Jackets right at the end of the year. And there still will be plenty of continuity too. But I think with Don Waddell, the new GM in Columbus, it would be shocking if things didn't change significantly. And so it looks like that's what's going to happen this year. But, again, all you can do is wish those guys well and, appreciate what they did for the city of Cleveland and see who's going to be next up because there are plenty of motivated young players, guys that I'm excited to see play, like Luca Pinelli, who signed on with the Monsters, at the end of his junior season this year, but did not make it into a game. That's one of many names of guys that could make a huge impact at, who knows, the NHL level, but maybe the American League level. So, right now it's just all about, a lot of guys are sitting looking at their phones, waiting for a text or a call from their agent to figure out what the next few years of their life might look like. So, that's kind of a nervous time across the industry, but like I said, for all those guys headed off to whatever's next, thanks for everything and just absolute best of luck to all of them. And for those of us in Cleveland, you kind of wait. You see what happens this summer. I mean, development camp's going on pretty quickly here with the Jackets. And then from there, some time off. And before you know it, it's going to be training camp. And then we'll see what's left after Columbus picks their team. And that's life in the American League. So it's an intriguing time of the year for sure.
We're talking with Tony Brown, the voice of the Cleveland Monsters. The actual title is Director of Broadcast Services and Team Communications, which means there's a little bit more to it than just being the play-by-play voice. And
long titles in the Cavs organization. Long
right. So you mentioned Monsters OT earlier. We've gone to multiple games over the course of this season and seasons past. You do 2 for Talking. You're in the box with one of the players as well. Like that's being played throughout the arena. What are some of the other things that you do, besides all that? I mean, it obviously is a lot. You make the play-by-play sound so easy, but there's a lot more that goes into it than that. What are some of the other duties and responsibilities that you have with the Monsters?
Well, very nice of you to say that. Thank you. It's sort of, in the minor leagues, you got to wear a lot of hats. I mean, we are lucky to have a huge staff, much larger than most of the teams in our league. I think that's fair to say. But, on the team communication side, I do things like, if you see press releases regarding hockey moves, so like call-ups or trades or acquisitions or coaching staff stuff or whatever, that's all me. And then, some of the PR duties like the game notes and stuff like that, which, some guys in my line of work think that's a pain. I kind of like it because that helps me prepare for the games. But just various stuff. But it's a very collaborative sort of an environment in our office. I mean, Ben Adams is one of our senior VPs who I've been working with since my first day at the Monsters. He left for a little while, came back. Of course, our team president, Mike Ostrowski, Jock Calendar, who is not just our color analyst, but a huge part of what happens with the team. I work with him throughout the year. He does sort of the team services and hockey affairs stuff. So he's kind of the liaison with the Blue Jackets and also handles a lot of the team travel and logistics. Raven Payne, who does community relations. On and on down the list. We just work together. And if there's anything that I can help with, I'm there to do that. And, but the formal, role sort of extends more into the PR media relations side of things. There's tons of promotional appearances that happen. There's, you name it. It's really all hands on deck. But it's one of the really fun things about working in the minor leagues is you don't get siloed. It's like you're a team up in the office, just like the team is down there in the dressing room. We all just do whatever we can to support one another and help one another and keep the Monsters, at the place where they are. And that's for my money. And I say this, as a biased, member of the front office, but also someone who's been around the industry in other places for a long time. The Monsters are one of, if not the best minor league organization that I've ever seen. And I'm not saying that for any other reason than it's true. They excel because they're principled and they have the support of the Cavaliers, and they've got a whole bunch of really devoted people who sacrifice of themselves for the greater success of the team. And so it's why I'm proud to be a part of it.
Tony, it's the last 9 years. I'm sure they seem like they've flown by for you. For us as fans, just coming to know that your voice has been around for as long as it has been, and barring promotion to the majors, we're certainly looking forward to hearing you for be the voice of the Monsters. for as long as it's good for you.
Yeah.
I could tell you for a few moments this season. I personally, and then we'll get you out of here. I was as the playoff run was going on through the TV. I was texting some of my friends who don't normally, we go to the Monsters games. We don't watch them all the time. I'm like, yeah, the Monsters on TV. Like, we got to watch this, and especially with people cutting the cord, that being on WAB, it was perfect because it was on free TV. As long as you had an antenna, you can get it. It was such a great move by the Monsters and the organization to get those games on because just word of mouth like that, we got, myself, I got at least 3 or 4 more sets of eyes on there, let alone their families. And then if they're saying they're texting their parents and what have you. So I remember that. And then I made it a point to stay in my car at Giant Eagle here in town as you were calling the finale of the regular season. My son was in my back seat and he's like wondering why I was still in the car. I'm like, we're listening to
Dad?
this. Like, I
Dad?
need to hear the end. I need to hear this call because because of the historical significance of it, first division title, and everything they went through to get there. So like it was such a special season for the Monsters, and
It was a lot of fun.
Those are some of the takeaways that I have from that, Tony. So, thank you for for bringing that to us, and obviously for the Monsters for providing that opportunity to do so.
Ed, thank you so much, and Rob and Noah, you guys too. I mean, you guys are just over the top with how kind you've been.
Uh-oh. I think he froze.
Tonight, but
oh, there you go.
That's the bit off, right? So thank you so much. I don't know. I mean, I think. Did the connection go for a minute? No, yeah, it's just I'm having fun. So I hope that you guys are having fun too, because that's all I want is to be the eyes and ears. That's all I've ever wanted in this business, to be the eyes and ears for the folks that can't be there, that care so much about their team. I take it as a real responsibility to frame it for them and to hear that, that you guys are enjoying it and that people are taking notice. That's just icing on the cake to me. So thank you guys so very much for all the kind words tonight, but more than anything else for listening and supporting this team, because teams like this one do not come around very often. In 10 years, there have been 2 of them. Or 9 years, there have been 2 of them in my time with the Monsters. All teams are special, and there's so many great, players and stories and staff members and individuals that make up the collective every year, whether you have success or not in the win column. But some years stand out, and this was one of them. So to help the rest of Cleveland realize that is something I'm very happy to have played a hand in. So thank you again, Ed and Noah and Rob too.
Absolutely.
Thank you for everything. And it's that's what you want to hear as the broadcasters, that people aren't turning the radio off. Keeping it on. That's good. That's what you want. So.
That you're absolutely right about that. If people are saying that, then you could be in some trouble. But
right.
no, I mean it was a lot of fun. Like I said, it was really cool to watch. On TV. I mean, in the playoff run, and I mean to come back from 3-0. I mean that's incredible in itself. The only thing that I couldn't believe. In Game 7, the puck went up and over the glass, and then that gave them the edge. That was a power play, and then they ended up scoring a goal. That, to me, is mind-blowing that there's a rule that, if it doesn't touch – I think if it doesn't touch glass and it goes out and over, it's a power play, and you have to take it – I mean, that is crazy, especially in that situation. I'm like, oh, my God, that can't be true.
It's still, delay a game is when you're inside your own zone and you send it out and it wasn't deflected either by another player or the glass. That's delay a game, and that's the rule.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And so it breaks your heart when that happens, though, in a situation like that. I think it was Jake Gaudette, who's just another one of the great guys in this business. And so, you just feel terrible.
Oh, I know. I felt like, how does he feel in that situation? I mean, I'm sure he didn't mean for that to happen. It probably just, you don't think it's a crunch time and, nerve-wracking time, especially because I think there were only a few minutes left in the game, actually.
Yeah, but if I recall, I think the Monsters killed that off for him, so they picked him up there because that was, think of how long those 2 minutes were for Jake sitting over in the back of the box, just feeling helpless. So yeah, just another example of a team playing
Yeah.
for each other, wanting to help their guy out, get him off the hook. And, it didn't end up in Cleveland's column. And I would be remiss if we, ended before I said congratulations to Hershey. I mean, obviously that's a team that, um, is not, they're a rival. You know what I mean? And they have a certain air to them that they have earned with all their success in the league. Sort of the Yankees of the American League, if you will. And so it makes it easy for people to hop on the bandwagon when you're the team challenging them. And so would have been great, but they were a great team, coached by Todd Nelson, a truly great coach in this league, and a lot of great players, and they got the job done. But
Yeah.
what I like, what I take heart in is that the Monsters pushed them to the absolute brink. And I wonder if it was an easier series for them in the conference final, whether or not they would have dealt with a really good Coachella Valley team in the final the way they did. I think the Monsters pushed them, taught them a whole lot about what they needed to really do to win beyond just show up. And so, hats off to them, though, completely
Yeah.
for their championship, an amazing 13th in the history
Wow.
of the league. That is pretty wild.
And I think you saw at the end of the game, Hershey respecting the Monsters. I mean, after the game, coaches were talking, and as tough as it is, I mean, I'm sure they knew it could have went either way. It was a pretty even matchup. I felt like watching it, even though we did get down 3-0, but you could tell the respect of both teams, which I thought was really nice. And that's what I love about the game of hockey. After the games, they all line up, shake hands, and I mean, you're out there on the ice beating the crap out of each other for most of the time. So it's nice to see them shake hands and respect each other after the game.
Yeah, totally. It's one of the best things about hockey is that great sportsmanship. And, the only thing Hershey didn't appreciate was when Christensen scored that OT winner in Game 6 and gave him the bear celebration. He didn't seem to like that too much. But by the end of it all, everybody was, respectful of one another, and that's what it's about. A lot of these guys know each other. It's a small world, the hockey world, and that's two great teams that really gave the league and everybody who loves hockey one of the all-time classic series in the history of the league. If the Monsters would have pulled that off, they would have been the fourth team ever to do that.
Wow.
It's something like 5% of the teams that have ever been down 0-3 have even forced a game 6 or something
Wow.
like that. Don't quote me, but somewhere in that park. So incredible series. And I think at the end, that was the big takeaway from everybody involved in it, was that, wow, we're not going to forget that one anytime soon.
No doubt.
Absolutely. Well, Tony, thank you very much for the time. Enjoy the rest of your time up in Minnesota, and the rest of what the off season is, and hopefully we'll get you back on over the course of the next season, and hopefully after another successful Cleveland Monster season.
Thank you so much, Ed, Rob, Noah. Thank you guys. Always a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Appreciate it.
That is Tony Brown, the voice of the Cleveland Monsters. Just wrapping up his 9th season as the voice of the Monsters. You can check out information about him, TonyBrownPXP.com. That is actually where I found a lot of the information. So thank you, Tony, for that. I appreciate that.
Best in the business, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Such a great guy. Just to come on, he's with the family enjoying a little vacation, and he took some time out of his busy schedule just to come and visit with us and talk a little Monsters hockey, Blue Jackets, and how fun the season was. Because I mean, it really was a pretty incredible season. And if you love the sport of hockey, I mean that's a sport that they were down 3-0 and they were still fighting and clawing. Sometimes you watch basketball series and all that, and all of a sudden you're down 3-0 and you could tell they're packing it in and kind of just gonna move on to next year. But in hockey, it's a little bit different. We saw it in the Stanley Cup. I mean, look at the Florida Panthers. They were up 3-0. Mm-hmm. The Oilers came back, tied it at 3, and then the Panthers went back and got the win. But that's what the great sport of hockey is about. Ask Kelber with the Greater Cleveland High School Hockey League. That's kind of what it's about. And Tony Brown's a great guy and always has been so nice and genuine with us. And can't thank him enough for coming on tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely, Rob. Once again, thank you, Tony Brown, once again for having us on the show. And
Wait, Tony
again,
Brown had us on the show?
But anyway, yeah, like you said, Rob, like the Monsters, they were like the fourth team to like come back down 3-0 in a series, and not many teams did what the Monsters did this year. But Coach Trent Vogelhuber, he really kept this team together, even down 3-0. But once again, thank you again, Tony Brown, for coming on to the show tonight. And once again, congratulations on the Cleveland Monsters for having a terrific playoff run and winning the North Division for the first time in the franchise.
Absolutely.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight on our Summer Spotlight. We have, again, you've watched us on our YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you follow us on Twitter /X at SOT Podcast. Our Facebook is at Sports on Tap. You can also listen to us on Spotify. Our website is sportsontappodcast.com. So you get the notifications about, you can also get our schedule about where we're going to be and when we're going to be on. And send any sort of comments, questions, suggestions to sportsontappodcast@gmail.com. We are working on, we're going to get real close here to our high school football season preview. We're going to start getting some local coaches on in the coming weeks as we prepare for the 2024 high school football season. It is right around the corner. We are in the month of July already, so doubles are going to be starting in about a month or so, less than. If you have a favorite football team or a favorite school you're following, make sure you're following their social media. See where they're at. They're doing 7-on-7s now. They're doing passing camps. They're doing, they're starting to do some work against other teams. So if you're really interested in what your team's got going on, follow them on social media and see what they're doing. And then when you really want the nuts and bolts of things, make sure you follow us when the football season starts. Make sure you stick around for a word from all of our tremendous sponsors. And until then, for Rob Troutman, Noah Jacobson, Josh Sheffy, and Sean Duffy, my name is Ed Dick. You've just watched the Sports on Tap Summer Spotlight. Thank you again to Tony Brown, the play-by-play voice of the Cleveland Monsters, and we will see you on the other side.
Sports on Tap Summer Spotlight is presented by Raymond Felton State Farm.
Have you compared insurance rates lately? Are you satisfied with your current insurance provider? If not, look no further than Ray Felton State Farm, a proud sponsor of Sports on Tap. For a free quote, call his office at 234-284-2996 or visit him online at rayfelton.com.
Whether you're hosting a corporate event, wedding, conference, concert, or any other special gathering, our comprehensive range of services will exceed your expectations and elevate your event to new heights. RRT Productions. We shoot, we edit, you win. Visit our website at www.rrt-productions.com.
Hand and built leather goods. Leather goods built for life. Made by hand in the USA, all goods are made with veg-tanned leather. Some of the best quality around and made by a U.S. veteran. Check out their website, www.handbuiltleather.com.
We've got the experience, the passion, and the beach to make your event a smash hit. Whether it's a romantic wedding, a lively sports venue, or a rocking high school dance, Troutland Entertainment has you covered. Contact them at 330-414-4261 or email them at troutlandent@gmail.com. That's troutlandent@gmail.com.